So commandments actually show Yahweh's character. What does he say? Malachi 3:6, I am Yahweh, I change not. So the same way that he doesn't change, his eternal character would never change, and that's what all the commandments are. They reveal his eternal character. Psalm 111, verse 7. Psalm 111 and verse 7. The works of his hands are truth and judgment. All his commandments are true, standing firm forever and ever. They are done in truth and uprightness. He sent his redemption to his people. He has commanded his covenant forever. Holy and awesome is his name. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. All who practice them, the commandments, have a good understanding. His praise is standing forever. So very clear. Anything that is a direct commandment, basically the 10 Commandments primarily, they're part of Yahweh's eternal nature. They never change. Now a statute. What is a statute? We have on our law system, according to statute 244-2, right? And basically a statute is applied law. A statute is applied law, but it's enacted before the fact. It's applied law that's enacted before the fact, and a good example is the holy days. We keep the holy days because it's a statute, it's applied law, but it's not based on anything. It's applied before the fact. The holy days were there from creation. The things we do. We unleaven our house, we fast on this day. The holy days were set in action, so it's applied law, we're applying it, but they're enacted before the fact. And again, there's some statutes that are in Scripture, not that many as you might think, but the third part, the judgments, that's the important one that I'm going to spend a lot of time with. Because what do we say judgment is? Discernments. Rendering decision. What happens at the end of a court case? The judge says, okay, we're going to take a recess and I'll come back with my judgment. Doesn't mean he's coming back with his condemnation. He's coming back with his decision. And believe it or not, most of the laws and of the 613 laws of the Torah, most of them are judgments. Most of them are. And the vast majority of judgments are telling us how to treat each other. Well, more than 50, 60, 70% of the laws in the Torah are judgments that just tell us how to treat each other. And that's the reason why. With the mind of Yahweh, what did Paul say? Basically they're summed up in two. Love Yahweh with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you really did this from the bottom of your heart, every single one of those 613 laws is an extension of that, one way or another. And if we really had the mind and the heart of Yahweh, basically it does come down to those two things. But a judgment is applied law by situation. It's applied law by situation. A lawyer who's doing his due diligence for a case is trying to find a precedent that has been set in another case to win his case. An example is, let's say you wanted to build a fence around your backyard. What are you going to do? You're going to find a neighbor who got a variance to build a fence around his yard, and then you're going to come and you're going to tell the court that. According to statute 21142, on this street here, this person back in 2001 got the same exact variance, so we would like to get the variance for the same thing. So that's what a judgment is. A judgment is applied law by situation. You're applying the law, but every situation is different. Like I said, the same way that an attorney would do his due diligence, that's what we're doing. We're looking in the Torah. When a situation comes up, Don, we got a situation. So-and-so borrowed, my trailer. He had to move some of his wheat. And while he was moving the wheat, this happened, and the trailer got all bent up. And it's going to cost more money to fix it than it's worth. But he doesn't want. He said it's an old trailer, and he doesn't want to pay for it. Now what do? We got to make a judgment. We don't do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. We go into the Torah and we find a judgment of exactly a principle that tells us about that situation. And then from that principle, what do? We make our judgment. So that's all it is. All of us are like attorneys and judges. And most judges, almost all of them, are attorneys. They start out as an attorney and then they move up to become a judge. Because why? The more they understand law and the more that they've worked with law, now they get to the point where they can actually judge and interpret it. And that's all it is. And again, most of the judgments, most of the laws of the 613 laws are judgments. Now, I want to specifically go into some of these judgments here to prove this point. Before I do, I'll just read a little bit here. It says, most Old Testament laws were judgments. Most judgments do not apply for us today. But they're still laws. And I'll give you an example. Anybody here a farmer? Anybody a farmer?
Small one.
Yeah, maybe a small one, right? But out of 100 people in the West, you're lucky if you find a couple of farmers. So there's many judgments in the Bible that tell us about farming laws. So now the fact that we're not farmers, what would that mean? Those laws don't apply to us. Doesn't mean they're done away with, because if I start farming tomorrow, then every one of those laws would apply to me. It's the same way if anyone here doesn't have a driver's license. I know my wife doesn't. She doesn't have a driver's license. Does that mean that there's not driving laws because she doesn't have a license? No. What it means is the driving laws don't apply to her because she's not driving. But the law is still there. And if she got her license, they would certainly apply to her. But if she doesn't. So that's why I say that there's many judgments that don't apply to us strictly because our lifestyle isn't adherent to the judgment. It has nothing to do with a law being done away or nailed to a cross or anything like that. It has to do with, again, if we're not farmers, then all those laws pertaining to farming, they wouldn't have any bearings on us. But at the same rate, when you look at the principles, some of the principles would have bearing on us. And that's what we have to see. Judgments act as precedents for human relationships. Judgments act as precedents for human relationships. The letter of the law does not change, but the application may. Important to understand, if you really want to understand Torah, if you don't understand this fact, this is when Paul said the law is good if you use it lawfully. I mean, we have a congregation in Florida that's going back to killing lambs at Passover because they don't understand this fact. Because they want to stick to the letter of the law. And you know what? In the end time, there's going to be a lot of believers being killed by some zealous, zealots who think they're keeping the Torah of Yahweh, and they'll kill you to do so. There's something called Noahide laws that the Jewish people have. People think it's great. Oh yeah, I talked to this Jewish rabbi. He told me I'm to keep the Noahide laws. Read the Noahide laws. One of them is if somebody who they consider a Gentile, which they would consider most believers as Gentiles, if not all of them, that if you keep the Sabbath day, it's decapitation, it's death, cutting your head off. How much farther do we want to go into the Noahide? You don't know how many rabbis I had tell me, no, you have to do one bit of work on the Sabbath. Really? What law are you reading? No, it's only for Jewish people. Really? What Torah are you reading? Sabbath only for Jewish people. I read Ecclesiastes 12:13. What does it say? This is the duty of mankind to keep these things. As if Yahweh is going to be angry. He only wants, not even all 12 tribes. He only wants one tribe to keep the commandments. Absolutely absurd. But the letter of the law does not change, but the application may. The application may. So let's start getting into Torah 101. Let's start looking into these laws and seeing. Let's go to Exodus 21. And I'll go through, try to give a wide range of situations to show you this principle. To me, I find this very exciting, this topic, because I'm a very functional person, or I tend to want to be a functional person. And when I'm able to look at things in